Hello and welcome everybody to what promises to be, even by the extraordinarily high standards of this conference's distinguished speakers, an exceptional Meet the Mentor lunch. I'm Karen Robinson from the Sunday Times newspaper in London, and it is my enormous pleasure and privilege to introduce to you Sir Fazle Hasan Abed, founder and chairperson of BRAC, an organization which has been described by Paul Collier, author of the very influential book The Bottom Billion, as the most astounding social enterprise in the world. Based in Bangladesh, BRAC has become the largest development organization in the world by most measures in just over 40 years since it was founded by Sir Fazle in 1972. And before we meet the man, let's just look at a few facts and figures. The organization's development interventions on behalf of the world's poorest people in healthcare, agricultural support, microfinance, human rights, legal services, enterprise development, and of course, education, cover an estimated 126 million people. To put that in global Western terms, that's around the entire combined populations of France and the UK. In Bangladesh, BRAC operates in nearly 70,000 villages, and since 2002 has rolled out its operations into first Afghanistan. It now also applies its anti-poverty solutions in Uganda, Tanzania, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Liberia, Haiti, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines. And what of the man behind this remarkable global project? Sir Fazle Hasan Abed, and the Sir came from Her Majesty the Queen of England as a sign of recognition for his work in 2009. But that's just one of, a raft of honors from organizations all over the world. Sir Fazle was born in 1936 into the distinguished Hasan family in what is now Habiganj in Bangladesh. Now, one senses that the young Fazle had the ability and the drive to achieve in any field. And it's also just possible that the marine industry lost a very fine shipbuilder indeed when he decided not to use his degree in naval architecture from Glasgow University. So he forsook the banks of the Clyde for a chartered accountancy and a rapid rise in the Shell Oil Company. But in 1970, the plight of his fellow countrymen and women, hit by a devastating cyclone, profoundly affected him, and he was moved to set up an organization to help provide relief and rehabilitation. Obliged to move to London by the War of Independence that followed, his exile was but short-lived. On return to his country, he found it in a sorry post-war state, exacerbated by millions of refugees returning from India. Beginning in remote Sula in northeast Bangladesh, BRAC was born, the start of a lifetime's commitment to improving the conditions of some of the world's most poor and marginalized people. In terms of education provision, BRAC has primary schools in 6 countries with over 700,000 students, and also places great emphasis on preschool. There are secondary schools, training programs, and even a BRAC university. So I would like to start with BRAC and education. The key, as President Bill Clinton said yesterday, to all endeavors to raise the living standards and expectations of the most disadvantaged people on the planet. And I will be opening the conversation up to your questions too, so please have them ready. But first of all, I'd like to start, Sir Fazle. Please tell us, we'll start at the very beginning, so please tell us about preschool provision by your organization.
Well, when we started educating children from the poorest families, we found that large numbers of poor who enroll in primary schools actually drop out from the primary school system simply because they have not had the preschool, no preparation for going to school, and their parents have not been able to provide the kind of facilities or education that is a child learns at the age of 3, 4, or 5. And so they straight going to primary school, not learning much beforehand, were already a disadvantage for the poorest children, particularly those who came from families whose both parents are illiterate. So we decided to have preschools so that these children who finish our preschool can go to a government primary school, and then we saw that those we gave preschool education actually didn't drop out in the kind of numbers that normal children would drop out. So there was a 40% dropout rate from our primary school system, but when we started the preschool and our preschool children started going into government school system, the dropout rate went down to 15%. So this was one of the reasons why we started preschool, because we couldn't provide education to all the children in Bangladesh, but if we could provide large numbers of very poor children with preschool education, that they would not drop out so fast, and our education program would not have so many wastes from its system. So that was why we did preschool. But the basic idea was that we wanted to give education to the poorest children in Bangladesh. And poor children actually come from poorest families where both parents are illiterate. Poorest children are also girl children because there is no priority for girls to go to school. Priorities are not given by families to send girls to school. So we wanted to get girls into our school and boys who, because of poverty, were unable to access education. So poorest boys and girls were our main target. So we set up schools. First, initially, we set up 22 schools to test a model. One teacher and 33 students were at our school. And that teacher will take the children for 5 years of primary education from class 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We will train the teacher. The teacher would be a village woman with 12 years of education. We'll train her for 2 weeks first, and then supervise her twice a week in the school, and then give her 1-day refresher course every month. So that keeps up her quality. So she's a para teacher, who is being groomed over a period of time to become a very high quality teacher. So over a period of time, she became a professional teacher of very high quality.
And is that still the pattern that you work to today in terms of finding teachers? Because I think one of the themes that's come out of a lot of discussions at this conference is that we're going to need an awful lot more teachers, and where are we going to get them, and how are we going to train them to the right quality?
And that's our answer to this problem was, that we should find the teacher in the village, usually a married woman between 25 and 35, who would have children of her own, and we will train her, and she will be in that village. So she would know everybody in her classroom and so on. And that worked exceedingly well in the sense that the quality of education we provided was so good that when the government started a primary school completion examination, our children, 90% of our children in the first 30%, top 30% of that examination. So our children were doing very, very well.
Well, that's quite an achievement, I think, isn't it? But then what happened? Because another theme that is coming out of the conference is the difficulty of transition to secondary
schools. Secondary schools is a problem because Bangladesh now has got 19,000 secondary schools. Most of these schools are very badly managed. The teachers are not well trained. And then the government also doesn't have the money to provide the kind of support, teachers training, teachers salary support is provided by the government, but very minimally. So that's one of the problems of quality education. So the quality education is a big problem. So what BRAC did, instead of setting up its own secondary schools, it started looking at the poor quality schools. About 3,000 of them we chose who are not doing very well at all. And then we started training from their headmasters down to all the maths teacher, English teacher, and science teacher. So we started providing teachers training and trying to see whether these schools improve quality of their teaching learning in their schools, and also introduce things like sports, debates, and things like that. So it's really revitalized these schools, in these 3,000 schools. So we have so far seen that what the kind of teachers training that we have done, the kind of inputs that we provided to the schools in terms of sports and debates and other things, bringing into competition, national competition, and so on, that sort of revitalized the school system. And at least these 3,000 schools, you find that matriculation examination we have after 10 years of schooling, these schools have done, sort of significantly better than they used to do. So every year we monitor how these schools are doing.
Yes, I think that's a very valuable point there, that if you make school a fulfilling experience, kids are more likely to turn up and keep turning up.
Yes.
But also that what you have in terms of the exams, but also because of the sheer size of your organization, you have the research into your methods and what works. You've got big data there. And could you share with us some of the findings of what does work?
Whatever BRAC has done so far, we have always looked at how we are doing in terms of monitoring the results of the outcome of our program, and also doing impact assessment of our program on the ground. So all the big data showed that BRAC students, as I said, that the top 30% of the class, the primary school completion rate was 90% of our students got into top 30% of that. So these came out in the big data in the government school system. So, but we are also looking at, we have a research department which looks at quality of teaching learning in Bangladesh as a whole. So we find that after 5 years of primary education, some 10% of Bangladeshi children still can't do proper read, write, and properly enumerate. So there seems to be, so we bring out a report on the state of Bangladesh's education every year, looking at the quality of primary education, looking at the quality of secondary education, and also quality of skills training and so on. So these reports are coming out, and we are at least trying to get the system to look at this as to how we are doing in terms of quality provision of our education system. Sorry.
Right. So that's adding to the nation's education value and stock as a whole.
But what we have started in Bangladesh and was very successful, we have now gone into this with the same kind of program in Afghanistan, and we have set up 7,000 schools for girls in Afghanistan. We are doing education now in Pakistan. We have set up 600 schools in Punjab, Sindh, and Northwest Frontier Province for girls. So we are interested in girls' education because I think ultimately this is going to make a difference in the quality of society we are going to get in the future. So, and we have also set up schools now in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And then we have just been invited by Australian AusAid, the Australian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to go to Philippines and work in the Muslim Mindanao. The Mindanao province had been fighting for a long time now, and the whole generation has gone through without any education. So we have now set up 700 schools in the Philippines to start giving the first generation to a primary education in that province.
That is impressively big numbers, just sort of tossed off there, 700 schools just set up. How do you, in your organization, how do you scale up like that? How do you find the resources to work on such a big scale?
The scaling up is sometimes most NGOs are quite content in being small and beautiful. And I have always felt that instead of being small and beautiful, I'd rather be big and impactful. And in order to do that, you have to build up a whole lot of systems. For example, you want to scale up school system. At one time we had 35,000 one-teacher school in Bangladesh. So teachers had to be recruited. So you have got an HR department which can recruit teachers. You have got a training department which can train large numbers of teachers over time. You have to have accounting department. We have got to have the audit to see that nobody is stealing money in the system. So all kinds of systems has to be built in order for you to be able to scale up things. So once you have scaled up things, then of course you have to find the money.
I was going to come on to that.
Right.
Yeah, where do you get your funding from?
And funding, of course, is the easiest thing to do when you have a very good program on the ground. And because the donors are also looking for successful programs. And I have never had any problems in finding money in Bangladesh for the programs that we wanted to scale up, because there were good programs on the ground, the results were good, and so donors came forward and said that, we would like to fund you. So our school, at this moment in Bangladesh itself, our education program, we spend about $55 million annually. And that comes from our present donors, which is DFID is one, Australian government is one, the Dutch government is another one. So large numbers of bilaterals fund our programs. And we also have businesses, which our budget at this moment in Bangladesh is about $700 million, of which $200 million comes from donors, and the rest of it we generate from our businesses. So microfinance is one large business we have got. We have got a bank. We have seed multiplication. We are also in agriculture. So we provide high quality hybrid seeds to farmers, rice, maize, vegetables, and so on. We have poultry farms. We have feed mills. So we are in agriculture, livestock, fisheries, all kinds of areas where poor people have livelihood. And we try to either provide them with inputs for livelihood, inputs for whatever they produce, or we market their products. So we have got a dairy industry. We collect milk from all over Bangladesh and sell various kinds of dairy products. Wow. So large numbers of businesses is also providing support to our non-profit activities.
It sounds almost as though you're like running a sort of alternative government, but do you get involved in politics? Do you have to lobby very hard to do what you want to do in the countries around the world where you're doing it?
No, I don't think we have. We have tried to keep ourselves out of politics deliberately, because we felt that this is we'll get ourselves into, if you're party politics, then one party coming to power, the other party, if you're known to be either this party or that party, then you have a problem with when the other party comes to power. So we have kept ourselves out of it. But we have been able to, so far, been able to work with the government in such a way that they consider us as a kind of a resource. So we provide training to government officials. So we have got our university in BRAC. BRAC University provides training to civil servants. So civil servants used to go to Kennedy School at Harvard University, 1 or 2 a year. So Harvard University said to us, why don't you take on civil service training, the same thing that we do at MPA at Harvard, and we help you to get this thing going. So we have started, in collaboration with Harvard, a civil service training program for 1 year, MA in Governance and Development, which is same thing as the MPA at Harvard. And we provide every year 30 civil servants come in from the government, and we provide training, MA degree to them. So 12 months residential course in BRAC University. Same kind of thing we do in education. We are training the district education officers, 1 year management and leadership training in education. So we felt that that the government needs support too. We may be taking children, 10% of Bangladeshi children goes to BRAC school, but the 90% which don't go to BRAC school are not getting high quality education. So we need to train the leaders of the national system so that every child gets a quality education. That's the idea, that's the goal. But I don't know, it will probably take time for us to reach that goal of getting every child a good quality education in Bangladesh.
Well, it does sound as though you are fantastically influential in your country. You've never wanted to go into politics, though? You've never thought of switching that to center of the political stage?
No, I don't. I think that politics is has got different kinds of ethos. We wanted to remain autonomous as an organization, as a civil society organization. That's what we are. We are not a political party, and we don't wish to have power for ourselves. We want to have power for the people.
Well, it's probably guaranteed you a much longer career, I guess. But and that brings me on to another issue, which is perhaps it's the prevailing conference theme, which is that what a lot of people here seem to be saying is that governments and NGOs cannot meet the challenge of educating the world's poor alone, and the private sector is needed. Now, as a hugely successful NGO, what do you say to this?
I think private sector is coming up with education solution in providing education in many countries. But the only problem about private sector is that they're looking for returns from their investments. And when you're looking for returns from your investments, that means that you'll be also asking for a fee, which poor children cannot afford. So, all right, private sector can come into education and provide quality education to well-to-do children, and there is probably a demand for it also. But then, if you are looking for, are the poor children going to benefit from private education? Probably not.
So it's not the universal cure-all then. That's a very interesting point of view. I think what I'd like to do now is throw this open to your questions, because I can see some very interested faces out there. And perhaps, especially if you're from a small and beautiful NGO and would like to ask the man who runs the biggest in the world how he does it, or if you're from any other sector at all, please do put your hand up and we'll take some questions. So this gentleman down here, would you like, before you, I don't know if we've got a mic, but, oh yeah.
Is there a mic?
Perhaps tell us who you are and where you're from, and then ask your question. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name's James Townsend. I work for an organisation called Stir Education. we work in India and in Uganda to build a movement of teacher change makers. One of the things that a lot of organizations get told and advised is, well, really just focus on doing what you know how to do really well and don't get blown off course. But just hearing about BRAC, it's obviously a huge organization doing quite a diverse range of projects. So you seem to have gone against the grain of the advice that so many organizations are given. So I just wondered if you could share your experience on how you take decisions about when or not to diversify your work, and how you kind of hold it all together.
Well, yes. We have always been interested in serving poor people. So needs of the poor is not just education or just healthcare or just agriculture or just employment or just income. There are so many other needs. So we have tried in a systematic way to try to meet the needs of the poor in different ways. We have even set up businesses to meet the needs of the poor. For example, when we had microfinance, we still have a large microfinance program, and about 6 million people borrow from us money in Bangladesh alone. And then what we found that the 300,000 women who borrowed money from us were growing vegetables. And we found that they were not earning enough and not being able to repay loans properly. So we investigated what was the reason for this, not being able to earn enough out of vegetable gardening. We found that the main reason was quality seeds. Quality seeds were not available. So we went into business of seed multiplication to try and provide the high quality seeds that the women needed. So we went into a business to provide the right kind of inputs for the poor to be able to have a productive enterprise. So like that, we have gone into many things to serve the interests of the poor. So it's not, and then of course, once you develop the skills of vegetable seed multiplication, then we go into maize and rice, hybrid rice. So we've gone into joint venture with China to grow hybrid rice in Bangladesh, as a result of which Bangladesh's agriculture has developed in a significant way. So we have been able to not only serve the poorest people, but also help to get the agriculture in Bangladesh going in the right direction with right quality of seeds and so on. So it's been a development program in a holistic way. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, well, we'll take this lady first and that gentleman, please.
Hello, my name is Noor. I'm the CEO of Teach for Pakistan. I have two questions for you. The first question is around what are some of the personal lessons you have learned over the years? You've been working in development now for 60 years, I see, and I'm curious as to what are some of the lessons you have learned about your own self in that process. And my second question is...
I didn't quite get this question.
It's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting question, which is, in the course of your career, doing what you've been doing, what have you learned about yourself?
Yourself, okay.
And I have a second
question.
question.
Let's take that one first, shall we, and then go on to the next one.
Okay, or should I ask the second question now, or should I wait for it?
If you think they're linked, then yeah.
I think what I've learned about myself is that what motivates me is not success in terms of figures, in terms of showing how wonderful it has been to do this, but success in serving the poorest people who needs the best kind of service. So I am motivated by trying to serve people, not in terms of getting organization larger or bigger and so on. So basically, I'm still very, very committed to poor people's lives. I want to change their lives in a way which will make a meaningful contribution to their lives. So that's what motivates me. And I've learned that as long as I've been able to do it, I've been quite satisfied with my, with my own career.
So my second question is linked to the first one. How, as your organization has grown and expanded, have you continued to find ways to continue to engage with the ground?
Continue to?
Engage with the field, with the realities of the field. How do you personally continue to reflect that? Because I find that to be the biggest success of BRAC, that they reflect the realities of Bangladesh and the countries that they work in so well. So I'm wondering what are some of the ways that you do it, and what are some of the systems you have created for your organization to do that?
The organization is large, and so the kind of work I used to do in the first 10 years of BRAC is being done by other people now. So we have got regional managers and area managers and so on. So they do the same kind of work that I did when I started BRAC, when BRAC was small. So BRAC now has more than 60,000 staff and more than, again, another 50,000 teachers that we pay salaries of. So it's a large organization. But then I can't also go to the field as often as I used to do. And I used to talk to poor people to find out how their lives are being changing and things like that. And I've learned many things from poor people. So I don't learn as much as I used to do when I used to go to the field, interact with people. But then I also learn from my staff as to what is happening in the field. So I get it second hand rather than first hand. But it's always nicer to have first hand knowledge of what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, quite a challenge with those sort of numbers to run and be at the head of. Okay, we'll have that gentleman now, and then we'll give another table a chance.
Right.
We're dominating the questions here. I'm Ankur from Acumen Fund. Question for Dr. Abed was, you made a comment that private education, where you charge fees to the children and families, may end up excluding the poorest. Yet BRAC, of course, runs other businesses which are sustainable. So my question was, how do you decide what can be kind of revenue generating or sustainable as a service to the poor, and what is a kind of a subsidized model, given that the government certainly has interests in some of these areas, and people also have preferences about where they want to send their children to school, or which doctor they go to, or where they borrow money from. So there's certainly lots of resistance in multiple directions. So what do you decide is the best kind of way to scale up a particular service in terms of whether it's sustainable or subsidized?
Well, yes. For example, initially when we started microfinance program, it was not sustainable in the sense that it was not earning enough to keep it going, because we were charging so small an interest that it didn't cover costs. But then we made microfinance sustainable by charging an interest which will cover all the costs. So like that, in BRAC right now, we have 35,000 primary schools where we don't charge anything. But then there are the demand for BRAC type schools in the system, in Bangladesh, and people are ready to pay for it. So we are now setting up some schools in some areas where people are ready to pay for the same education that we provide free to others. So we are now setting up those schools where they're ready to pay for at least the cost of it. We are not trying to make money out of it, but at least to cover the costs, people are paying for it. So some of the programs are going to be not going to be totally subsidized by us or totally subsidized by state or the donors, but we'll have to cover its costs. So, but the only problem about private education or education which charges fees to students is that the poorest children can't have access to those. But then I have no problem in seeing that well-to-do children going to fee-paying schools. I have no problem with that. And I think this will continue in our society where government provision is quite poor in terms of school education or the quality of education.
Thank you. Who's next for the question? So can you, oh, sorry.
There's no other
So
question?
do we have another question? Everyone's looking very interested, but nothing anyone else would like to.
Okay. So we end it, yeah.
Yes, so I think that just wraps it up. And I hope I must say I've learnt a lot and some interestingly counterintuitive thoughts, and always from the man who that source of all wisdom, Wikipedia, describes as a social worker on his Wikipedia page,
Right.
but who I think in his constant return to and focus on the very poorest in our world and their needs has shown is quite a lifetime of extraordinary endeavor and achievement. So thank you
Thank you very
very
much.
much.
Thank you very much.
Fazle.
Thank you.